Hi, I'm Gabe.
I'm Kelley.
I'm Jaime.
Okay, so it's almost the holiday break.
Yay!
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus.
Happy Yule.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Happy
Kelly brought in
things.
wassail.
Mm-hmm.
It was good.
It was very tasty.
I'm glad you liked it.
I am too. You said it didn't have eggs. How do you do it with eggs? Or was
You whip egg whites and then you fold in the yolks and then you temper the eggs with the hot wassail until they're all incorporated. So it's got like a nice little foam on top.
That'd be a totally different drink because what you had it was almost like spiced apple cider.
I mean, it would still be a spiced apple cider. It would just have a frothy top.
Interesting.
Frothy top apple cider.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, so egg whites, they like the saturated fat helps with like the alcohol, so it doesn't absorb as much. So you're not like going to be as sick if you consume more of it. Also, the regular recipe calls for brandy, and I didn't have any brandy, so.
Yeah. This might be our first ever cooking segment.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's a shame. I'm happy to talk about abortion and cooking anytime.
All right.
Yeah, so we had our annual Staff Plus Friends with Jessica Roach from
Got my nice
Roach.
mug.
Yes.
Toxic masculinity ruins the party again.
So that was fun yesterday, but back to depressing crap.
Right. We are waiting for word from the governor's office as to the fate of House Bill 214.
Yes.
Are we anticipating it to be signed on Friday?
So
today?
Yeah, the tea leaves Ouija board crystal ball says that Kasich would sign the bill on December 22nd, the day before everybody in the entire city of Columbus leaves on their Christmas break.
And he's not going to make a big to-do of it because why would he?
Because he's a big coward who's ashamed of his own record. But yet doesn't change the record.
Yeah, he won't really be responsive to our caroling if we decide to go caroling next year.
You're still allowed to go caroling.
I'm not going to go carol by myself.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what he does. I mean, yeah, it makes complete sense for him to sign it as the throw out the trash the Friday before a holiday. I mean, that just is so
right.
Stereotypical of him.
I want to go wassailing and burn things.
You're allowed.
I'm not going to do it by myself.
This is Ohio Right to Life's big signature piece of legislation that they really wanted to pass this year. I mean, they would have liked to have passed it last year, but they want to make a big deal out of this. And here's Kasich, not only throwing it out with the Friday trash, but throwing it out with the holiday trash, trying to like hide it amongst all the discarded wrapping paper.
Why is he being such a coward about it? Because he's a lame duck. There's not really anything he can do or they can do or anyone can do. It's just me. I'm going to sign it because I'm a weenie.
There needs to be a term for a lame duck who might also run for president.
Yeah, because that's why he's doing it. Because he was on Meet the Press this weekend talking about how he was such a moderate. And yesterday he signed some bill signed some letter with a bunch of other governors telling people to telling Congress to fix the DACA problem, and he's out there like all over the place acting like he's this fabulous moderate that everyone should love. And this whole like signing the 20th abortion restriction since he came into office doesn't fit that whole little story he's telling about himself.
I'm going to say he needs that chill pill suppository. That's all I'm going to say.
Should take his own advice and take his own chill pill
and take it up his butt.
He could veto the bill.
He could.
I mean, his office has said that he wants to see exceptions for rape and incest in abortion restrictions that he passes.
Which this one does not have.
This does not have.
But none of them, but like one has. So that's a complete false statement anyway. But yes.
Right. The governor's office has legislative staff. Even though they're the executive branch, they still have, people who work with the legislature who advise them on what the governor wants to see in specific bills. They lead the budget process off every 2 years. There's no shortage of communication between the governor and the legislature. At no point in time since Kasich was sworn into office in 2011 have we ever heard of this staff going to the legislature and saying, hey, please add these exceptions that the governor says that he wants. They've never testified in any committee ever for those. And we've never heard anything through the press, through other legislators, about the governor actually asking for exceptions for rape and incest.
Mhm. And he signed multiple things that don't have exceptions. So
Yes.
obviously it's not at the, tilting point that he says it is.
Must be
Right.
hard to talk out of both sides of your mouth.
Apparently, it's quite easy for him because he does it all the time.
Uh-huh. So yeah. So we're waiting for that. We'll see if he does it tomorrow or if he completely ruins our week before Christmas and New Year's break.
If he doesn't, we'll just be like, well, now what?
Yeah.
He could sign. We think he'll sign tomorrow. He could veto. We think that's highly unlikely. Third option is he doesn't sign the bill at all and lets it pass into law. This isn't a pocket veto situation. In this case, the bill becomes law, but without his name on it.
But that's also like a completely wussy thing to do because it still will have his name. It's still around his neck because he could have stopped it from going into effect. So he doesn't get any bonus points for letting it become law without his signature because
Lame chicken.
yes,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yes. There we go. John Kasich is a lame chicken. That's going to be the title for this podcast. Thank you. So we're still asking for supporters to contact the governor's office and demand a veto. It's the right thing to do. Once this bill gets signed, as we believe it will, the focus kind of becomes Mike DeWine, because he's been the attorney general. He's been on the wrong side of history for all of these years for everything. But now we're seeing the future of the anti-choice movement in Ohio as being potentially a Governor Mike DeWine, which is a horrific thing to say out loud.
Yeah. I mean, here's the guy. I mean, we talk about Kasich and his 20 abortion restrictions, blah, blah, blah. But, under the radar over here, Mike DeWine's been writing amicus briefs supporting Hobby Lobby taking away contraceptive coverage and Conestoga Wood Products taking away contraceptive coverage. He wrote an amicus brief in support of House Bill 2 in Texas in the whole women's health case. They were the attorney of record in Ohio on the Oglefeld gay marriage case. I mean, he has done all of these things that are bad. Oh, and also this week announced that he wasn't going to join the New York lawsuit on net neutrality either. So he's all for wasting taxpayer dollars on all these bad things, attacking our rights, but isn't interested in, making sure we have access to.
And the minor seeking abortion in Texas.
Yes, he did that too.
Right.
So yeah.
Horrible record.
He's the one that gets to waste all of our money on these lawsuits.
Yes, which he apparently enjoys doing.
I mean, his office had to write a $45,000 check to Planned Parenthood after his brouhaha of a press conference accusing them of illegally disposing of fetal tissue, which was not illegal and was completely compliant in the law.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is a literal $45,000 some $100 check that his office had to write to Planned Parenthood because of his actions.
Right. They don't want to give money to Planned Parenthood health centers for healthcare, but they're okay giving it to Planned Parenthood's lawyers.
Yes. In Indiana, the ACLU of Indiana has gotten $400,000 a year from the state of Indiana on a variety of anti-abortion and other bills that the Indiana ACLU has been pushing forward. So
defund Planned Parenthood by funding Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
It's the legal team.
Yeah.
I mean, fiscal conservatives, these people who claim to be libertarians, should be absolutely outraged at that.
And yet,
I don't hear the outrage.
You can insert like a little cricket sound there if you want.
Yeah. I have to Google sound effects now. Thank you.
I can't make that one. I'm sorry.
So look at Mike DeWine's actions. Look at his history. I'll put a link in the show notes of an AP article that I believe Julie Carr Smythe reported a couple years ago, where she looked at public records requests, or did public records requests, and found communications between DeWine and Ohio Right to Life to coordinate their efforts there. As we see this 20th attack on abortion rights and reproductive health care get signed into law here, the focus goes away from the lame chicken John Kasich and moves towards Mike DeWine.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, moving into 18 with all the electoral stuff, for sure. But it'd be interesting to see. I mean, once he signs it, really, it's in the hands of the lawyers to figure out if it's something that they want to sue on or not. It's been filed in Indiana and blocked, so we'll see what happens in Ohio.
Right. Lawyers are looking at it.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing here in Ohio. We still have several other bills that are still
hanging out.
Possible things that could move in 2018. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, so just so people know, our legislative session goes 2 years continuous. So a bill that doesn't get passed this year will still be waiting for us when everybody comes back in January. It's not like when the session ends at the end of an even numbered year. So yeah, so we still have the method ban sitting out there. We still have like 2 fetal tissue bans and the 6-week ban. So we could see, I mean, all of these moved that last week.
Right.
Or in that time frame. Actually, the method ban didn't move, but they were hearing rumors that the method ban will move in January.
So the method ban, for people who aren't familiar, is a ban on the most commonly performed abortion method used in the second trimester. It's the one doctors recommend for their patients because it is the safest.
Yes.
And again, the alternative is to induce labor, which can only be done in a hospital and not in a clinic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Much
So
more complicated.
That abortion method ban could move.
Yeah, the 6-week ban could move because we saw that come out of committee last week, but didn't go to the full floor. So it's just waiting for a floor vote in the House.
And that would ban abortions. Whoa, sorry.
Gabe's throwing his pen at Kelley.
That would ban pretty much every abortion everywhere in the state of Ohio.
Yes.
It would close every clinic. It would outlaw the procedure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because that sounds like it's totally constitutional. All right.
Incorrect.
And then
the fetal remains bill.
We saw a second hearing on the Senate version of that last week too. So
and this is passed in Indiana and been blocked, right?
Yes, it actually was the same bill. They did one bill that had the fetal remains and their version of the Down syndrome ban all in one.
Okay, so we've been lucky enough to see it in 2 separate bills.
Yes. Lucky us.
Technically 3, since there were 2 Down syndrome abortion bans.
And 2 fetal tissue bills.
Oh.
So actually 4.
Oh my God.
I love how that was passed in Indiana and blocked as like a catchphrase around the office.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And again, as we've said before, all of these actually have been blocked in some state somewhere. So yes.
So what happens if all of these bills are passed, like just all of them, and like where can these legislators go once all of these bills are passed? Like how many more abortion restrictions can be passed after?
There aren't that many more on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, this was something that we said here that I said, and I wasn't entirely correct, but after Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt, the ruling came down because it was very clear about, reaffirming Roe and saying, listen, if it doesn't provide a benefit to women and it's an undue burden, then it's unconstitutional. That principle from Ruth Bader Ginsburg took a lot of the Texas trap law stuff off the table for Ohio. And so that's why we're not seeing these gotta have a janitor's closet over here, width of the hallway sort of restrictions on abortion facilities. They're running through all the options, and there is going to be a point, I think. I thought it was going to be before now.
But it is some knocking on wood there, Gabe.
Yeah. Where we will sort of pass out of this period of seeing all of these abortion restrictions, because eventually they're just going to pass all the ones that are in any way passable and get challenged and, God in the court's willing, get knocked down, and then they'll be back to square one.
Yeah, as long as our liberal court justices can survive the Trump presidency. I think that's your big wild card right there.
Right.
So, yeah, but I think the only other kind of mainstream, and that is in air quotes for those not watching the video, thing that we haven't seen in Ohio that we've seen in other states are elongating the waiting periods. Many states have gone to 48 or 72-hour waiting periods from the 24-hour waiting period that we have here.
Right.
This is really the only kind of mainstream, again, in air quotes, restriction, but again, has been ruled unconstitutional, I feel like, in some places, because forcing 72 hours for, when you start losing clinics and and things like that is a burden on women's access. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Aaron Matson from Repro Action would be mad at me if I didn't note that a waiting period, while it sounds like not that big of a deal, is actually a very severe
BFD.
penalty. Yeah, it
Mhm.
is for women. If you can't get that second day off of work to get back to the clinic, if there was travel costs that are prohibitive for you, extending a waiting period from 20, and any waiting period is bad. Extending it, even that much farther makes abortion access unattainable for many low-income women.
I mean, especially when you're coming from Kentucky and West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Indiana to our clinics in Ohio, like you can't just travel like several hundred miles over a week and a half to get the care you need.
Right.
I was looking online and I saw that if you live in Odessa, Texas, you have to travel a minimum of like 250 miles to get to a clinic. So let's not have that happen in Ohio.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll see.
Right.
Fun.
And adding to the nightmare that has been 2017, this week the tax scam, I called it tax reform, which was wrong. You
Incorrect.
corrected me. It's horrible.
It is past.
But it's past.
Yeah, well, and I think too,
I'm so effed.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem. Unless you really are paying attention and thinking long term, initially you might actually think that this is a good thing, because in February, when this goes into effect, your paycheck is going to increase because you are, withstanding all the other pieces that they screwed us on. That there is a tax break, again, in air quotes, an upfront tax break at the beginning of it. So everyone's paycheck is going to go up in February.
But I will not be seeing the deductions that I have seen, and it will not give as big of a return, which is like a big chunk of change that I can use for future savings next year.
Exactly. So it won't be until February, March, April of 2019 that people realize, oh crap, I got screwed.
Yeah.
You should be very proud of me. I didn't cuss right there. And
bonus points.
Bonus points.
What all deductions have they cut? Like, I don't even know.
I think no one really knows, because they were talking about it this morning, and they were saying how some of them got, so like the child tax credit got increased beyond where they thought it was initially going to. And
but that really only applies to people who are rich enough to adopt so many children.
Right.
Which, like, I can't afford to adopt children.
Yeah. So, I think that they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, a lot of the tax stuff is, the local and state tax stuff is like capped, I think, at $10,000 instead of unlimited and things like that. So I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, because everybody's like, oh, when people like see their paychecks go up, they're going to think Republicans are awesome.
For a year, maybe.
Yeah. Well, just that's all they need. They need to get through the 2018 midterm, and then they can, do whatever the heck they want to do. Didn't cuss again.
You can say hell on the radio.
I don't know. We got to find out.
So yeah, but
you can say it on TV.
I mean, it still did include the fetuses or people provision.
That's still in the bill.
Yeah.
It's not only like just like a way to like introduce personhood into the tax code for some reason. It's also a way to like hide money elsewhere.
Well, the thing is, you can already do that. You can already open these education savings accounts before having a child. You don't have to have the child. So
with all that surplus cash you have on hand.
Yes. Because
look at all this money I have.
My mom asks me all the time. She's like, have you opened one of those accounts? I'm like, with what?
Look at all these like $3 bills. I'm just rubbing myself with.
Well, it was at Cornyn. One of the people, can't remember who it was, tweeted that, the average family, those families where they're like two wage earners making, what was it, like 60 grand combined, and then had $40,000 of other income that just magically
they have a $25,000 business and then a $15 income from $15,000 income business. I was like, how are people working two people working full time and then also have a business that is also massively profitable? Does not happen. There's like maybe two people in this entire country that would apply to.
Yeah, they make candles in their basement.
Sell stuff on eBay and make $15,000. Like, where are these people or Portman coming up with his middle class families, or families that make, what was it, $150,000 a year or something like that? Or it was like, they're so out of touch with reality on money that they have absolutely no idea how like the normal, American lives.
The spouse and I make like less than half of that.
Yes.
And we have a baby.
Right. So yeah, I mean, but my sister called me and she was asking, for me to explain the bill, and I said, well, it gives all of these huge tax cuts to wealthy people and giant corporations, and in exchange we get $1.5 trillion deficit. And she was like, oh, well, what's the good side? And I was like, no, it's the tax cuts for the companies. She's like, there's nothing. I was like, no, that's all there is.
Well, and the thing is, now they're still saying that they're not even going to reauthorize CHIP before they leave.
Right.
So they're saying that there's this big, huge deficit that they just increased by a ridiculous amount of money. And it's this deficit's fault where they can't reauthorize the child health insurance program.
So they're gutting the healthcare of at least 13 million Americans plus children.
Yes.
And for like maybe $100 per paycheck.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
And so like what really is happening is this trickle down economics of screwing states over.
You know what's
I mean, that's really what it comes down
trickle
to.
down shower. You just get your hair clean and nothing else.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So yeah, I mean, FedEx even tweeted yesterday that they were excited to see the tax cuts and that their profits were going to be record after this. The whole point of it was that no, your profits wouldn't be records. You would actually pay your employees more. So basically these corporations are showing that this is complete BS and isn't actually going to do what any of the Republicans say it's going to do.
Turns out if you make more profits, you're not going to invest it into your workers.
Of course not. We're already making record profits and they haven't done it yet. So why is it going to change?
It goes back to the shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
So
all those rich people getting richer and the poor people getting poorer. That's really what's going to happen here.
If I think too much about this bill, it makes me very, very anxious and I want to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when this bill was sort of first brought up by Paul Ryan, I mean, it was right around the same time as we were seeing all of these like white nationalists and the march
Nazis.
with the Nazis
Yes.
with the torches in Virginia. And the thing I said at the time, and I mean, it sounds gross to say it out loud, but Paul Ryan and his tax legislation is going to kill far more people of color than those Nazis ever could.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gross to say it that way, but that's the truth of it.
I'm just like here, like, was it ethical for me to have a child in this situation? Too late now.
Welcome to the world. Sorry, it's screwed up. Sorry, we just saddled you and your generation with another $1.5 trillion in debt. Yay.
Jingle bells, jingle bells.
Overthrow this hetero
patriarchy. So we've got, switching complete gears, we've got a new website. We got to talk about something nice.
His name is Charles.
Kelley named the website.
Well, that's because you keep calling him Webby McWebsite. He needs a proper name.
Charles.
Charles.
We have a new website.
So now we have 2 men on staff, Gabe and Charles.
Yes. So one of them is attractive.
It's
and
Charles.
good on mobile. Yeah. Please do visit prochoiceohio.org. Check out our new website. We'll be adding new stuff to it, but it already has good stuff now. It looks much more attractive than the old website. It's much more user-friendly. If you've wanted to find out information, links to some of these bills that we've been talking about,
You can
pictures
see
of our
what clinics we
beautiful
have.
staff. Yes, a nice list of the abortion clinics serving patients in Ohio.
I still look very pregnant in my staff picture.
You do. We'll retake those. Check out prochoiceohio.org. It will eventually become the new home for this podcast and the blog with it.
That's exciting.
Those haven't moved yet, but they will soon. The link to find us on iTunes to listen to the podcast will not change. So that's always going to be the same thing. You can find it at bit.ly/NARAL podcast and download and subscribe on iTunes.
Listen to us, please.
Apple Podcast.
Yeah. So looking forward into the new year, we've got a couple events coming up in January that are yours.
Yeah, right now we have 2 organizing meetings with our friends at Planned Parenthood. We have one in Columbus that'll be on January 11th, and we have one in Dayton that is tentatively scheduled for the 17th of January. I will send out emails when we have that like nailed down.
Great.
We'll also have a phone bank, and then we also have our first crafternoon of 2018 will be January 7th. So if you want to come out and knit and crochet and make other crafts, that's the time to do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And stay tuned for Row anniversary event dates. They should be announced here shortly too. So
Got a lot going on.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to close out this episode with some audio. If you're listening, if you're watching the video, there's a link in the show notes below. Reverend Al Debelak is a good friend of ours. He swung by our office a couple weeks ago to record a video talking about some of his friends. They go to his church, I believe. But they are older adults who have raised a child with Down syndrome. They know what that experience is like. And they have, over the years, had that same conversation with other families facing that same prenatal diagnosis and talking to them and just, letting them know that it's okay to make their own choice, to make up their mind for themselves. That whatever they choose for themselves is the right choice. Whether that's to abort or keep the child or put it up for adoption, as long as they make that decision, then they've made the right choice. So we're going to close out today's show with some audio of him sharing that story.
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And then we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.